I've just got back this week from a great holiday in England. It was lovely to be away. It's always good to come back. Even though I did come back this year to a terrible smell in the house. It didn't take long to track it down to the kitchen, and I found that the fridge had packed up, and it must have been broken for several weeks because the food that was in it was pretty rancid. And clearing it out was a horrible job. The engineer came round and pronounced it dead. He looked at the back of the fridge and saw what the problem was. A mouse had run and got trapped in the condenser. We could see its dead body there. And he told me that if the condenser packs up, then the compressor fails as well. And the compressor takes $1,500 to replace. So I now have La Jolla's most expensive mousetrap in my kitchen, if anybody would like it. I want to say a few words this morning about the psalm that we just read together. Some of the readings are a bit more complex today, so I'm going to stick with that beautiful psalm, Psalm number 37, which I've read quite a lot over the years and has taught me a lot. And if you want to turn to it, that's the passage I'll be speaking from. I think I was drawn to it because of the way it begins. Do not fret. Do not fret because of evil men, it starts. And as a natural worrier, I know that that's a lot easier said than done. I turn off the radio every time I hear that dreadful song, Don't Worry, Be Happy. That doesn't work for me. I once heard of a woman who turned to her husband and said, darling, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are at the bottom of the garden. And her husband said, well, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. I notice in the psalm that there's a progression from do not fret at the beginning to the invitation to be still at the end of the psalm. Be still, in verse 7 it says, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. And this movement from fretting to stillness goes through 4 verbs that we see in the psalm. Trust, delight, commit, and to be still. 4 positive verbs that make a big difference. And I'm going to pick out trust as the key one. If we're to move from fretting to stillness, then trust is essential. Trust is an active verb. It's not passive. If someone says to me, I need a new job, I've got to find a job. And I think that I'm trusting in God to provide a job for me. I wouldn't say, well, that's great. Just sit back, the Lord will provide. I'd say, great. Get out looking at adverts. Go on LinkedIn. Talk to people. Talk to a headhunter. Be active, not passive. Trusting comes in the belief that God will work in the midst of our activity. Our job is to recognize where God is at work in our lives and to trust him. Trusting God means getting on with the process of life and trusting that God is in the midst of it, working his purposes out. Trust is an active verb. And trust has come to mean for me something in the present, not something in the future. I used to think that trusting in God meant that trusting that God will work everything out, that trust was a belief that all will be well in the end, that all's well that ends well. Now I'm learning and trying to trust God to be at work in my life now. Trust God in the present moment. That's what this psalm has taught me. And as I say, I've prayed with this psalm for a long time. And see how all the verbs are in the present tense. Trust, commit, delight, to be. Learning to trust God, for me, was learning to trust God in the present moment, in the present reality. And I think the trendy word for that is mindfulness. It's the same thing. Fretting or worrying comes from thinking about the future. Stillness comes from enjoying the safe pasture of the present moment. The deep truth behind this psalm is that God is in our present moment. Verse 4, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. The word delight is a great word. It's a Hebrew word that comes about half a dozen times in the scriptures. And it's a word that means delicate or soft, something delicate that someone would enjoy. Isaiah uses it of a nursing child who delights in his mother. It's a wonderfully unusual word to use of God. David, the author of this and many other psalms, was someone who delighted in God. Elsewhere he wrote, in your presence, Lord, there is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures forevermore. David knew that God was with him. He lived his life in the presence of God. David learned to trust God, which is why he could speak in his psalms of God as a fortress, a refuge, a hiding place, a strong tower. Trust for him wasn't about thinking that God would give him what he wanted in the future. God wasn't some sort of guarantor of his future happiness. God was with him in the present moment, in the vicissitudes of life. We're to live reflectively, to be constantly asking ourselves, where is God in this? Where is God in my life at work in this moment? And I've talked about learning to trust, because that's not something that comes naturally to us. In verse 5, David links trust to commitment. He says, commit your ways to the Lord and trust in him, and he will do this. I like playing tennis, as I know many other people here do. And if you cast your mind back, if you're a tennis player, you might be able to remember the days when it wasn't so much fun. When you start playing tennis, it's really not fun because you can't hit the ball. You either miss it, it goes in the net, it goes over the fence. It takes time and commitment and dedication to learn to be good enough to play a rally, which is when the fun starts, and then it might turn into a game. But you don't start off having those kind of rallies and games. It needs the commitment to learn how to play, to pick it up. And learning to trust, taking delight in God, too takes dedication and commitment and time, because that too doesn't come naturally. Trust takes time. We know that in our human relationships. It would be foolish to trust someone the first time you meet them. You have to feel them out. Find out if this person is worthy of your trust. And so it is with God. We start out gently. We feel our way. I love the story of the man in the middle of winter attempting to cross the frozen river of St. Lawrence in Canada. He needed to get to the other side. He wasn't sure if the ice was thick enough to hold him. So he gently put one foot on the ice. Then he got on all fours, started slowly to crawl across the ice. He got to the middle and panicked, especially when he heard a loud crashing noise behind him. He turned round to see a horse and carriage going at full throttle towards the river and not slowing down as it crossed the ice. Presumably because the driver of the carriage had done it many times before. He knew he could trust that the ice was thick enough to hold him. And the man cowering on all fours in the middle of the river would no doubt have been embarrassed as he saw the carriage go past. And maybe that says something about how it is for us with God, that we're feeling our way. We're learning to trust. That trust will come with time. So we've seen in this psalm how the psalmist goes from fretting to stillness. And I could sum it up in the words of the Dutch writer Corrie ten Boom, who said this: look around, you'll be distressed. Look within, you'll be depressed. Look at the Lord, trust him, you'll be at rest. Amen.